your political opponents who are dead, imprisoned, or jailed is long. Alexei Navalny's organization calls for free and fair elections, an end to corruption. But Russia has outlawed that organization, calling it extremist. And you have now prevented anyone who supports him to run for office. So my question is, Mr. President, what are you so afraid of?
Right, well, once again, I would like to repeat what I said about so-called foreign agents and the people who say that they are part of the unauthorized opposition. I've already spoken to your colleagues. Now I have to repeat that to you. Okay, once again, the US has passed a law which said that the US would particularly favor individual organizations in Russia, and at the same time they declared the Russian Federation as an enemy. They publicly declared that they will try to contain Russia. My question is, which organizations, which political organizations in the US are going to be supported by the US, especially if they pay them? We, the same as the Americans in the 1930s, have endorsed a law, but their work is not prohibited. If the organization has an extremist character, though, that's another kettle of fish. And obviously, they were being used or manipulated against the law enforcement agencies. America quite recently had to deal with terrible events after the murder of, or the killing of the African American, and Black Lives Matter ensued. I don't want to make any judgment about that, but what we saw, mass violations of the law and so on and so forth, we sympathize with the Americans, but we do not wish that this kind of thing should happen on our territory, and we will do our utmost to prevent it. And fears, I don't want to talk about that. That's absolutely irrelevant.
You didn't answer my question, sir. If all of your political opponents are dead, in prison, poisoned, doesn't that send a message that you do not want a fair political fight?
Well, on the question of who is murdering whom, people rioted and went into the Congress in the US with political demands, and many people were declared as criminals, and they are threatened with imprisonment from 20 to 25 years.
Thank you, Mr. President. In the run-up to this discussion, there's been a lot of talk about the two countries spilling down into a Cold War, and I'm wondering if there was anything that you emerged from in the discussion that made you think that he...
Permission, I'm going to take my coat off. The sun is hot.
Anything that would make you think that Mr. Putin has decided to move away from his fundamental role as a disruptor, particularly a disruptor of NATO and the United States? And if
I pointed out to him, we have significant cyber capability, and he knows it. He doesn't know exactly what it is, but it's significant. And if in fact they violate these basic norms, we will respond. Cyber. He knows. The last thing he wants now is a Cold War. Without quoting him, which I don't think is appropriate, let me ask you a rhetorical question. You've got a multi-thousand-mile border with China. China is moving ahead, hell-bent on election, as they say, seeking to be the most powerful economy in the world, the largest, and the most powerful military in the world. You're in a situation where your economy is struggling. You need to move it in a more aggressive way in terms of growing it. And I said to him, I said, your generation and mine were about 10 years apart. This is not a kumbaya moment, as they used to say back in the 60s in the United States, like, let's hug and love each other. But it's clearly not in anybody's interest, your country's or mine, for us to be in a situation where we're in a new Cold War.
Thank you, Mr. President. Is there a particular reason why the summit lasted only about 3 hours? We know you had maybe allotted 4 to 5 hours. Was there any reason it ran shorter?
The reason it didn't go longer is when the last time two heads of state have spent over 2 hours in direct conversation across the table, going into excruciating detail. You may know of time, I don't. So we didn't need, as we got through when we brought in the larger group, our defense, our intelligence, was there. We looked at each other like, okay, what next? What is going to happen next is we're going to be able to look back, look ahead in 3 to 6 months and say, did the things we agreed to sit down and try to work out, did it work? I agreed to do these things, that all of a sudden it's going to work. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is I think there's a genuine process to significantly improve relations between our two countries without us giving up a single solitary thing based on principle and our values. I heard he quoted my mom and quoted other people today. It was very, as we say, which will shock you coming from me, somewhat colloquial. There were no threats, just simple assertions made, and no, well, if you do that, then we'll do this, with anything I said. Just letting him know where I stood, what I thought we could accomplish together, and what, in fact, if there were violations of American sovereignty, what we would do. He asked us about Afghanistan. He said that he hopes that we're able to maintain some peace and security, and I said that has a lot to do with you. He indicated that he was prepared to, quote, help on Afghanistan, I won't go into detail now, and help on Iran, and help on, and in return, we told him a lot what we wanted to do relative to bringing some stability and economic security, or physical security, to the people of Syria and Libya. So we had those discussions.
Today, did you, in terms of the red lines that you laid down, is military response an option for a ransomware attack? And President Putin had called you in his press conference an experienced person. You famously told him he didn't have a soul. Do you now have a deeper understanding of him after this meeting?
Thank you very much.